Welcome to M4 PG, sir, and thank you for your kindly time for the needy students. We can start now, sir.
Okay, thank you. I am Dr. Sumit Garg. Today, I am going to discuss about benign bone tumors. First, we'll see bone-forming tumors, which includes osteoid osteoma. It's a benign neoplasm, most often seen in young men. It is seen in second or third decades of life. It has a predilection for lower extremity, with half the cases involving the femur or tibia. Symptoms include pain, which is worse at night and is relieved by aspirin or other NSAIDs. Increased levels of cyclooxygenases and prostaglandins have been demonstrated in the lesions. Now, when the lesion is near the joint, swelling, stiffness, and contracture may occur. X-rays show a lesion consists of a small, less than 1.5 centimeter central radiolucent nidus with surrounding bony sclerosis. So CT is the best study to identify nidus and confirm the diagnosis. Technetium bone scan show marked increased uptake. On MRI, there is extensive surrounding edema. Now, this is the osteoid osteoma in a 17-year-old girl who complained of left thigh pain for several months. On the AP view, we can see there is a small radiolucent lesion with thick sclerotic rim of reactive bone. So treatment options are medical treatment with NSAIDs, percutaneous radiofrequency ablation, and open surgical procedures include removal of entire nidus. It is done by curettage or en bloc resection of the lesion. Now then we'll discuss about cartilage lesions. First we have chondroma. These are benign lesions of hyaline cartilage. All age groups may be affected. Most common location is phalanges of the hand. And it is the most common tumor of small bones of hands and feet. They are usually asymptomatic and frequently discovered incidentally. Usually they arise in medullary canal where they are referred to as enchondromas. And rarely they arise on surface of bone. Here they are referred to as periosteal chondromas or juxtacortical chondromas. Multiple enchondromatosis, also known as Ollier's disease, is a rare condition in which many cartilaginous tumors appear in large and small tubular bones and in flat bones. Tumors are located in epiphyses and adjacent parts of metaphyses and shaft, and many bones may be affected. When they are associated with hemangiomas of overlying soft tissues, it is known as Maffucci syndrome. Individual lesions are similar to solitary enchondromas, but they have a definite tendency to become malignant. Approximately 25% of patients with Ollier's disease are diagnosed to have sarcomas by the age of 40 years. On X-rays, they are benign appearing tumors with intralesional calcification. So calcification is irregular and has been described as stippled, punctate, or popcorn. Now, in small bones of hands and feet, there is considerable erosion and expansion of the overlying cortex. An associated soft tissue mass is never present with an enchondroma, and it always indicates a chondrosarcoma. These are the X-rays, apian lateral view of the distal femur of a 55-year-old woman, which shows a calcified lesion without cortical destruction, which is most consistent with enchondroma. Now, juxtacortical chondromas usually are small, less than 3 centimeter, well-defined lesions that frequently appear to fit in a saucer-shaped defect on the surface of bone. This is an AP X-ray of left proximal humerus of an 18-year-old man with a juxtacortical chondroma. CT is the best to evaluate endosteal erosion that could indicate a chondrosarcoma. Now coming to treatment, solitary enchondromas are treated by observation with serial X-rays. If the lesion remains radiographically stable and asymptomatic, no further intervention is required. Now, if the lesion grows or it becomes symptomatic, then extended curettage usually is curative. The treatment of multiple enchondromatosis is more difficult. Individual lesions usually are not treated. The more obvious deformities can be corrected by osteotomy. They must be monitored indefinitely for malignant change. Now, coming to osteochondroma, these are common benign bone tumors. They are developmental malformation rather than true neoplasm. They originate within periosteum as small cartilaginous nodules. Lesions consist of a bony mass, often in the form of a stalk, produced by progressive endochondral ossification of a growing cartilaginous cap. Their growth usually parallels that of the patient and usually ceases when skeletal maturity is reached. Most lesions are found during the period of rapid skeletal growth. 90% of patients have only a single lesion. Most common locations are distal femur, proximal tibia, and proximal humerus. They may occur on any bone preformed in cartilage, but usually are found on metaphyses of a long bone near the physis. So this is the X-ray and MR image of osteochondroma on distal femur of a 15-year-old girl. The Trevor disease, also known as dysplasia epiphysealis hemimelica, refers to an intra-articular epiphyseal osteochondroma. Now, when multiple joints are involved, it is usually unilateral, hence the name hemimelica. Now, mostly they have no symptoms and are discovered incidentally. Some lesions can show mechanical symptoms by irritating the surrounding structures, and rarely they become painful due to a fracture. False aneurysm of major lower extremity vessels as a result of pressure has been seen, and neuropathies can be seen, which is caused by pressure over the nearby nerves. Multiple hereditary exostosis or diaphyseal eclasia is an autosomal dominant condition with variable penetrance, which involves the chromosome 8, 11, and 19. They are of two types: pedunculated and broad-based or sessile. Pedunculated lesions are more common. Stalk is directed away from the physis, adjacent to which it takes its origin. The projecting part has cortical and cancellous components, both of which are continuous with the corresponding components of parent bone. It is covered by a cartilaginous cap that often is irregular and usually cannot be seen on X-rays. But typically the cap is only a few millimeters thick in adults, although it may be 2 centimeters thick in a child. Plain X-rays usually are sufficient to make the diagnosis. Malignant degeneration is extremely rare with these lesions. It is seen in 1% of cases with solitary osteochondroma and 5% in multiple hereditary exostosis. Now, malignancy usually takes the form of a low-grade chondrosarcoma. In these cases, the cartilage cap usually is more than 2 centimeters thick. Surgery which is done is en bloc resection in these cases. Indications include lesion when the lesion is large enough to be unsightly, symptoms from pressure on surrounding structures, and imaging features suggest malignancy. Recurrence is rare and caused by failure to remove the entire cartilaginous cap. Patients with multiple hereditary exostosis may require osteotomies to correct deformity. Now coming to fibrous lesions. First, there is non-ossifying fibroma, which is also known as metaphyseal fibrous defects, fibrous cortical defect, and fibroxanthomas. These are common developmental abnormalities and are believed to occur in 35% of children. Usually, they are found incidentally. Generally, these lesions appear in metaphyseal region of long bones in individuals 2 to 20 years of age. Although any bone may be involved, approximately 40% of these lesions are found in distal femur, 40% in tibia, and 10% in fibula. On radiographs, a well-defined lobulated lesion located eccentrically in the metaphysis is seen. Multilocular appearance or ridges in the bony wall, sclerotic scalloped borders, and erosion of cortex are frequent findings. There is no periosteal reaction in the absence of a pathological fracture. So this is the AP and lateral X-rays of non-ossifying fibroma of proximal tibia in a 15-year-old patient. Histologically, the defect is filled with spindle-shaped cells distributed in a whorled or storiform pattern. Giant cells and foam cells are almost always present. Now, most non-ossifying fibromas are asymptomatic and regress spontaneously in adulthood. Now, most pathological fractures can be treated non-operatively. A lesion may become symptomatic and require treatment if they become large or if they are subjected to repeated trauma. Now, recurrence after curettage is rare. Now, coming to fibrous dysplasia, it's a developmental anomaly of bone formation. It could be monostotic or polyostotic. Hallmark of this disease is replacement of normal bone and marrow by fibrous tissue. They can occur in epiphysis, metaphysis, or diaphysis. Associated abnormalities such as sexual precocity, abnormal skin pigmentation, intramuscular myxoma, and thyroid disease may be present. What is McCann-Albright syndrome? It is polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, cutaneous pigmentation with Caffiole spots, and endocrine abnormalities with precocious puberty. Mazabrod syndrome is polyostotic fibrous dysplasia with intramuscular myxomas. Now, malignant change is seen with these lesions occasionally. On X-ray, there is a lucent area having a granular ground glass appearance with a well-defined sclerotic rim. The upper end of the femur bends down and is known as Shepherd group deformity. This is the X-ray of right hip of a 22-year-old with fibrous dysplasia of right proximal femur who complained of pain after a water skiing injury. Now, surgical treatment indications are significant deformity, pathological fracture, significant pain. Actual and impending pathological fracture are treated with intramedullary fixation whenever possible. Now, deformities are treated with osteotomy with internal fixation. Now, treatment with bisphosphonates probably is beneficial for patients with extensive disease. Now, coming to osteofibrous dysplasia, which is also known as ossifying fibroma of long bones, or also known as Campanacchi's disease. These are rare lesions usually affecting tibia and fibula, seen in first 2 decades of life. Middle third of tibia is the most frequently affected location. Although the lesion usually is diaphyseal, it may encroach on metaphyses. Tibia is enlarged and often bowed anterolaterally. Pain is usually absent unless a pathological fracture occurs. X-rays show an eccentric intracortical osteolysis with expansion of the cortex. So this is the AP and lateral X-rays of a 10-year-old boy with osteofibrous dysplasia of tibia. Lesion must be distinguished from adamantinoma and monoostotic fibrous dysplasia. Natural course of the lesion is unpredictable. Now, some lesions regress spontaneously during childhood. Most progress during childhood, but not after puberty. Now, recurrence rates are high after curettage or marginal resection in children. Conversely, recurrence rates are low after surgery in skeletally mature patients. Pathological fractures can be treated non-operatively. Surgical management is aimed at preventing or correcting deformity. Coming to cystic lesions of bone. First, there is unicameral bone cyst. These are common lesions of childhood. 85% occur in the first 2 decades of life. There is 2:1 male predominance, most common in proximal humerus and femur. In adults, ilium and calcaneus are more common locations. Now, lesions are most active during skeletal growth. They usually heal spontaneously at maturity. They are often asymptomatic unless a pathological fracture occurs. 2/3 of patients present with fractures, which can stimulate the cyst to heal. On X-rays, there is a centrally located, purely lytic lesion with a well-marginated outline. This is diagnostic of a unicameral bone cyst. It never penetrates the cortex and there is no periosteal reaction. Now, occasionally a thinned cortical fragment fractures and falls into the base of the lesion, confirming its empty cystic nature. Now, this fallen fragment sign is pathognomonic of a UBC with a fracture. Now, they start as metaphyseal lesions that abut the physis in growing children. With time, they appear to move closer to the diaphysis. UBCs are classified as active and latent. So they are active when they are within 1 centimeter of the physis and latent when they are closer to the diaphysis. UBCs are filled with a clear yellow serous fluid unless a pathological fracture has caused bleeding into the cavity. A fibrous membrane, usually less than 1 mm thick, lines the cyst wall. Now, treatment: small asymptomatic lesions in upper extremities are treated with observation with serial X-rays. Larger lesions, lesions at risk of pathological fracture, symptomatic lesions, and lesions in lower extremities, curettage with or without bone grafting or internal fixation is done. Also, aspiration and injection, often using corticosteroids, bone marrow aspirate, and demineralized bone matrix have been done. Pathological fracture in upper extremity can be treated conservatively because the fracture may initiate cyst healing. Fractures through cysts in proximal femur should be treated with curettage, bone grafting, and internal fixation. Now, coming to aneurysmal bone cyst. These are locally destructive, blood-filled reactive lesions of bone. They are usually seen in metaphyses. Most common locations are distal femur, proximal humerus, proximal tibia, and posterior elements of spine. Mostly they are seen in patients younger than 20 years old. There is a slight female predominance. Most patients complain of mild to moderate pain that has been present for weeks to several months. Now, spinal lesions may cause neurological deficits or radicular pain. X-rays show an expansile lytic lesion that elevates the periosteum but remains contained by a thin shell of cortical bone. Now, well-defined margins or a permeative appearance that mimics a malignancy. They are eccentrically located in the metaphyses. CT is done for spine or pelvis. MRI shows multiloculated cavities and fluid levels. Now, when differentiating between a unicameral and aneurysmal bone cyst using MRI, the presence of a double density fluid level and intralesional septations usually indicates an aneurysmal bone cyst. Now, in this X-ray, we can see a radiolucent aneurysmal bone cyst of left proximal tibial metaphysis in a 10-year-old boy. Now, MR images show multiloculated lesion with multiple fluid levels, which is consistent with an aneurysmal bone cyst. The treatment is extended curettage with and grafting with a bone graft substitute. Marginal resection is done for lesions in expandable bones. Now, lesions in spine or pelvis, pre-op embolization to minimize surgical blood loss is done. Arterial embolization is used as a definitive treatment of ABCs in locations where curettage would be extremely difficult. Now, low-dose radiation has been reported to be an effective method of treatment, often associated with rapid ossification, but it is not used routinely because of potential for malignant transformation. Thank you. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a great session, and it was very fruitful. I think it will be helpful for students to build their revision. Thank you, sir. And with this, we end our session. Thank you, sir.